I'm on the road again, believe it or not, and I'm on the road to Ashbury University, right here in Kentucky, my home state. I have heard so much hubbub about this revival. First I met some women while I was in the Cheesecake Factory who'd just driven from all parts of the United States to visit it. And they said, you've got to see it. It's amazing. It's quite an experience. A lot of energy is going on there, blah, blah, blah. And so I just thought, oh, interesting. And then I get a message from my dear friend.
Watch out, construction on road ahead.
In Italy, you know, in Italian, and she's sending me an article translated in Italian about this revival, this gathering, this whatever. So I decided to get in the car. Me and Kiki, we're on the road and we're going to check it out. So I'll let you know what happens. Family. Well, Kiki and I are on the way to the revival, but we just found out it's not going on anymore, which suits me fine. But I did feel called to come out here and run some Kristalla frequencies, which I will do. And it's funny, driving the back roads of Kentucky reminds me of when I was a little girl. My father was a minister and he used to be a traveling minister, so every Sundays today, you know, I get in the car with my dad. My mom would stay home, she didn't really like to do that. And you know, I was like, Kiki, you know, I was 3, 4, 5 years old, and he'd load me up in the car and I'd sit there in the congregation and listen to him tell his stories. And he was an amazing storyteller, and he was so mesmerizing. Once I stood up in my pulpit, he was in the pulpit, in my pew, and he had to like tell me to sit down. So here we are out again, traveling the back roads of Kentucky in search of God. Well, we know divine infinite sources within, but now this area that we are in is probably one of the wealthiest areas of Kentucky, because there are multi-million-dollar horse farms out here. It's in Versailles area, so it's not just the poor coal miner back roads of Kentucky where this Ashbury University. Hello, you divine infinite human beings. Your all is, ever has been, and ever, ever, ever shall be. And here I am at Ashbury University, where just a few days ago there was a huge revival that got international fame. And one of my friends from Italy said, oh, go out there and see what's going on. She's a devout Catholic, and we've had our discussions. But what, and she told me to come out what's going on, and it wasn't. So she was misinformed. And the point I'm making, though, is I wanted to check it out because I've had other people tell me about it. And it apparently has become a portal, actually, a place where people pilgrimaged from all over the United States. I talked to a couple of ladies in Cheesecake Factory restaurant, and they said they just come from there and they felt inspired, and they were doing all kinds of things. You know, I guess the old-fashioned revival, being saved and being exercised, and all kinds of experiences. And now, for me, as Elizabeth Monroy, the author of The Infinite Human, and I talk a great deal about religion and being raised by, you know, and traveling out to the back roads of Kentucky with my father, a minister, who taught me about spirituality and moved beyond religion. But what we're seeing here, though, is a time now with the timelines, the artificial timelines having been dissolving. We're seeing us as alchemizers going into, we may find ourselves, and I got in the car and drove an hour and a half out here to come out here because we're being asked, I think, as starseeds, as the leaders, as the lighthouses, to go into these places, especially where there's a lot of faith, where there's a strong, deep desire to know God, and asking to, really, it's to ascend, but it's asking for help. You know, God help me. How many times have we said that? God help me. And God knows. God knows. You know, this area has a lot of good, heartfelt, faithful people. And the gal that sent me here, Rosanna Reda from Calabria, is the same. She's like salt of the earth, good Catholic person, you know, who believes, who has faith in the Madonna and all this. And I think what we need to realize now is that we have to stop, you know, intellectualizing and seeing our differences. And the Infinite Human was really a big book about discernment and seeing, you know, this true spiritual essence that has, you know, that we've all been hijacked. And we've all been hijacked. But now that the timelines have been infiltrated, we no longer have to see things from being divided, all right? This whole divide and conquer thing is going to be dissolving. And I think instead of coming from a place of intellect, we need to come from a place of heart. We need to come from a place of faith. We need to realize we all want the same thing, and that is love. That is God. To me, God is everything, all that is, ever has been, and ever shall be. God is unity consciousness. God is the oneness of all things. And the only religion that there ever was before the fall was really the law of one, which was just celebrating life and the oneness of all things, of all creation. And I've already talked about the Na'vi and how they are very much connected with the law of one consciousness. So that's the consciousness we're moving into. So, you know, people are wanting it. They're desiring it. They've driven, you know, thousands of miles to come here. I think this little college campus had over 50,000 people coming to visit, and I'm kind of glad they're not all here now, so I can do a nice peaceful video. But you know, sign of the time. So it's time for us to come together in unity consciousness, not split hairs over, you know, religious doctrines, and realize that it really comes from seeing God in everything, including that person across from you and inside of yourself. So that's my rendition on the phenomenon of the Ashbury revival. Ciao from now. I'm here at Ashbury and I'm about to interview a student who works right there as a cafeteria, and he's going to tell me about how the whole thing started here at Ashbury University and at Hughes. I think that's the name of the chapel, where some students just wanted to keep worshiping, hanging around and worshiping, and the whole thing began. So I'm going to be talking to him shortly. Hello everyone, I'm here with an Adbury graduate, and he was at the first
years ago.
Okay, with the first revival. I'm just gonna pick up a little bit about what really happened. E lo spiego pure in Italiano. Okay, what's your name?
Danny Key.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, and he was there. Can you tell me about what you experienced with the whole thing?
Well, we heard about it on that first Wednesday. We both live in Wilmore here, and I work across the street at the seminary part-time. I direct the choir, seminary choir. And so we love this community and are pretty embedded in it. But so we started hearing, you know, this outpouring had broken out. So we came on Wednesday night and walked in, and it was quite awesome in terms of the feel, the spirit being so alive. And then we came back on Friday night, and then we got more involved across the street because the overflow of the many, many thousands of people who came to town, the overflow, because everybody couldn't get into Hughes Auditorium, the overflow went across to the seminary, the other side of the street. And so we hosted and live streamed it over there in 3 different venues.
Okay, and I have a student, right, that was there the first night.
Yeah.
Okay, and if I can just get some of your, you know, I'm going to turn this around so I can ask you questions. And okay? Yeah. Do you mind sharing your name?
Yeah, I'm Luke.
Ok, so questo è Luke, e Luke era qui il primo giorno che succede tutta questa cosa. Raccontami che cosa, come è cominciato? How did this whole thing begin?
Boy.
You want me to turn, are you okay with the sun, or do you want?
Yeah, I'm fine. If it works better for the camera.
Okay, so.
I do filming, so I understand how cameras work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, it was all on Wednesday. Everybody knows that. It was...
No, nobody, we don't know that.
Okay, not everybody knows. I guess it's common knowledge among the students. It all happened on a Wednesday. It was after chapel. That chapel, they'd had, the gospel choir came and sang, in place of the worship team that day. They come in occasionally, but it's kind of a rare and special thing. So the gospel choir led all of worship. And I think, honestly, it was probably their enthusiasm that got people excited. I can't really confirm anything, but like afterwards, a lot of the gospel choir, I think, stuck around, and you know, people just loved the energy that was going on.
They just didn't want to disperse. They just wanted to keep it going.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
So they just same thing as every chapel. They said, hey, I mean, every chapel they end it with, hey, if you want to, we'll keep playing music for a little bit. You can stick around if you want. It's a normal thing because not everybody has classes after chapel, and some people just want to stay there. Almost like a miniature revival experience. But that chapel, especially that chapel, just a lot more people stayed. Even if they had classes, they just stayed. And I know I didn't stay for the first little bit. I went over to the library to schedule out my day and got a little bit of work done. And when I left the library, this was like an hour after chapel had ended, there were people who were quite literally running up and down the street, shouting things like, hey, you guys got to see what's going on in there. Like, they were so vague about it. They're just like, you got to see what's happening. And I'm like, just looking at them like, okay, and getting a good laugh out of that. And it's just a good few guys were running around and saying, like, if you have classes, skip the classes. This is special. Like, just go inside. And they were kind of laughing. They were having fun with this. And they're like, yeah, dude, check it out. And so I'm like, okay, fine. I'll see what all the thing is. And I go inside through the back door. And I end up, and I'm right next to the stage where pretty much everyone is huddled next to the stage. Everyone's just kind of closed in there, and they want to be in this big group. You can tell that much. And just a lot of people are smiling really big. And it was, yeah, that was what I saw at the beginning.
What did it feel like? What was the energy like?
Ooh, that's a hard question to answer. I could see on there, I myself, I don't really get a lot of feeling out of these things. And it kind of all happens in the head, a lot of logical things, and it's a very different experience. But I could tell, I could tell from seeing other people who were getting this big feeling from all of this. I could see like what they, that it was a big thing for them. Just a lot of people smiling at seemingly the randomest moments, but you could just tell that they were happy where they were.
So they were feeling, they were having a spiritual experience, awakening, something was happening.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard from people that I've talked to. They said,
what my friends were telling me.
Yeah.
From the looks of it, it very much seemed to be true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the students weren't going to school. That's what the graduate was just, they were getting, well, whatever. It's got to the, so is that why they shut it down? Because like nobody was showing up for class, or?
I'm sure that's part of it, because at some point they're like, okay, guys, we need to do classes. And then the students acknowledge like, okay, I've loved doing this. I had plenty of friends who were like, I've loved going to revival, but I'm behind on so many things.
How long did it last, actually?
Oh, the whole thing? Oh, I can't remember. I think 2.5 weeks.
Okay, so
I wasn't there for
24/7. I mean, anyone could
Yeah.
walk in and find someone singing, praying, preaching.
There would be crowds. Certainly died down towards the evenings. I stayed with a couple of my friends. Got really excited to do an all-nighter, to stay up all night in Hughes. Like, bring our sleeping bags if we had to. Some of them.
So Hughes is the name of the
Yeah, sorry. The
chapel. I'm
the
gonna
chapel.
walk down there and take a look at it. Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, so what do you think people were like feeling healed or feeling hopeful now at this difficult time? Or I mean, what would you say? What was the attraction? Would you say?
Man, I really don't know for a lot of people.
It's very personal.
We had, well, that's true.
Yeah.
I do know a lot of people said that they were, a lot of people were talking about the hope that they were feeling for the church, for colleges because of this. Felt like it was like a start of a new generation almost, or maybe like a flame in the current generation. There was a lot of talk about that, so I know a lot of people were excited about that. But there were a few I knew of that had talked about getting healed either internally or like physically healed. I heard quite a few stories of those.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Not as much as everything else, but
I heard I met two women who had just come back, and she was talking about exorcisms, that there were exorcisms going
Wow.
on and things. So
I did not know about
that's
that.
why it's like, the story's spreading. It's getting, it's like huge. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, there was there were a lot of different. I think a lot of people got a lot of different things out of it. I mean, myself, I had a bit of maybe a unique experience, but I know some friends who felt the same as me in that we just kind of felt more sure about the church and our relation with it. I talked with a lot of friends about a sermon they had during one of the days. It was part of Revival, but also part of our college class or chapels. And that sermon was about having cynicism, skepticism, all those things. And personally, that was something I really had a big bad habit of when it came to the church. Like so many times I and many of my friends would go to church some Sunday at a new place. We'd walk out, and the first thing is we would think about or talk about what we disagreed with, and we're like, that doesn't seem right. Like, I don't know how. That was just a really bad habit.
Well, the thing that brought me here is, my father was a minister, and I grew up in Kentucky going to little churches with him on the Sundays because he would travel around, and he taught at the seminary in Louisville. But I think the people I talked to were from all different walks of life, all different churches. I mean, I feel like it went beyond like just a church. It was more just like really reconnecting with God, because I mean, really that isn't church, because there's so many different churches. There's so many different denominations. And this was like beyond multi-denominational, would we say?
The gathering? Oh.
I mean, because like this, my friend from Italy is like a devout Catholic, and then I think someone said this campus is like Methodist. Is that right? Or okay, and so it goes beyond the church or a certain church or a certain religion. It was more like connecting with spirit and God and everything. Would you say? I mean, I don't know. Because people came from all different churches or walks of life or whatever. Didn't they?
I imagine so.
Yeah.
The topic never really came up, I guess. I mean, that many people in one space, you're bound to have different backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was at Methodist that went to, what's the name of it?
Hughes.
Hughes, yeah.
Hughes.
Okay, so it was definitely beyond just Methodist or just one church, right?
I think so, but I don't know. It never really came up in the conversation because, quite simply, when people would interact during that, it was just cutting to the chase and saying like, "Hey, what do you need prayer for? What do you want to talk about? Do you need anything?" It was just, it wouldn't be like there was just no need to talk about what our denominational beliefs were.
Yes,
So
exactly.
I probably talked with some people of very different backgrounds, and it just never came up.
Yes, it wasn't about the division. It was about the unity of being there for each other.
We spoke in a universal language, I guess.
Yes, yes. And that's like, what do you need? We're all one. Let's all help each other. Let's all be there for each other.
Yeah.
You know, let's all pray for each other.
Yeah.
Because it's so powerful, that prayer of power, and those supporting prayers for one another.
I do remember there were a couple times where, like I said, you know, just kind of seeing how my friends were acting during all of that was a big thing for me. And there were like sometimes where they would do some practices that is not of my denomination. Not necessarily wrong, but like one I didn't personally believe in, or I just never really did. I'm like, I don't think that's a thing. But they do that, and it meant so much to them, and so.
But you all showed up at the same
we
place,
all showed
same
up.
time,
and it made me like kind of reconsider some things.
Yeah,
I'm like, you know what?
And it strengthened your faith. It sounds like.
Yeah, because
really, it was about faith so much, but having faith in, you know, whatever people call God, Allah, higher power, Jesus, you know, Yeshua. I mean, there's so many names, but it's all really just this, you know, this godness inside of everything. I think the unity, the oneness, the faith that there's this good force that's in all of us, that's moving us all. That's part of it. I don't know, I mean, that's my words. But
we've got this gigantic fence surrounding the whole thing, which seems a bit crude maybe at first, or kind of rough, but I imagine they just did it to get like clear communication, because like for the students, if there's an update, for the students throughout all of Revival, they were constantly sending emails because of how much schedules were changing. They were trying to let the students know, okay, change of plans, we thought that this would be happening, I guess this new thing is happening because Revival is so unscheduled. And so they were letting students know what was going on. For the public, though, which became the vast majority pretty soon, there just wasn't a lot of ways to like give them information about what the new change of plans were. So like we used to have a bunch of, I would come by and see big whiteboards on the steps of the chapel, and they'd have these huge signs saying, hey, sorry, I can't come over right now. Here's the times when it'll be open to the public. You know, they just needed time to clean up and get ready for.
So it's all, because I drove up here and they're all blocked off. You can't come up in here. Yeah, so I drove over on the back. I said, I'm going to sneak in and see what's going on.
Which I'm sure that's going to die down over time. It's just having to stop so abruptly.
Kiki, he sees you.
Stop so abruptly. I imagine they were just.
Was it difficult? I mean, were people like, no, we don't want to leave, or was there like any kind of like,
no, especially.
Be quiet, he's talking.
Especially since people had already like gotten excited about doing this in other places in their own churches, but.
Oh, that's good. So that's kind of like a candle that lit so they can carry the torch to their own community. Okay, so that was probably its purpose. I feel like it ran its purpose then.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. That makes
so
sense.
That's where it's gone now. It's gone off. That's what the couple I talked to before, they said, I said, where did it go? You know, they said, well, it went off everywhere because everyone's going to take it and do with whatever they feel guided to. I always say, you know, like, called to do, you know, from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah.
So I always feel like, but something starts divinely, it's kind of like a spark, and then, you know, it ignites. You said you felt that there was some kind of, you know, fire or something sparkling.
It did seem to be that. I mean, a lot of people were saying that for their own testimony.
So now they can take it to their community and create, because we really need community now, I think, on the planet after being locked down and put down into the, you know, computers and AI systems, and it's kind of done a real number on our humanness. And I think people gathering in one place, you know, with that energy is so powerful. And if they can bring that back to their communities so they can start supporting their communities, you know, supporting each other, it would be quite a change. Renaissance in consciousness.
It's a cool phrase.
That's my thing. Okay, thank you so much.
In closing, here I am where it all started at
this magnificent Hughes Memorial Auditorium here on Asbury campus in Asbury, Kentucky. And this is where I will say on the highest spiritual level, there was a spark ignited, a divine spark ignited, which thousands of people from all around drove here to touch that divine spark within them. And now that it's been closed down, it hasn't been closed down, it's actually now spreading. So the challenge is, okay, I'll call it the Asbury Challenge. The challenge is to take this divine spark of unity consciousness, of praying, of caring for your fellow human being, of reconnecting with the divine God source within you and within others and within all that is around, that oneness, that unity consciousness, and bring it to your community and bring it by some kind of event. It can be, you know, it doesn't actually have to be like here. It was a revival that lasted day and night, 24/7 for like 2 or 3 weeks where the students weren't even going to school. But it can be something, you know, that just has a lot of passion, has a lot of divinity, has a lot of inspiration behind it. And you do it in your community. So I'm calling out to everyone to do something, to be a spark of divinity within your community that creates that spark of unity consciousness. It could be a party, it could be a street party, it could be a birthday party, it could be you know, just a gathering in a piazza, it could be you know, just a talk, a singing, dancing. You know, they had gospel singers in here, so you want to get your mojo, you know, rising. They had healings happening, exorcisms, you know. But you know, it can be any way you want to. Your creative source, so you can create it your own way. And like I said, people didn't split hairs about what religion or if you were religious or what you called it. You know, everyone was just coming together in the unity of godliness or infiniteness, whatever you want to call it, and caring for each other and reconnecting with their own way of connecting with divine God source. So I think that would be a wonderful thing to spread from here, the point where I am, and I did the Crystala spiral out through the U.S. and out to Europe, out to South America, Mexico, you know, Central America, out through the whole planet, you know, to Asia, to Russia. If everyone in their community started creating these events where people can come together in oneness, in unity consciousness, in love and understanding, and get their mojo going in celebration. Ciao for now. It's up to you. Oh, wait.